Welcome to West Coast Supercars and Classics. I'm Mark. Today's topic, is the muscle car dead? Well, I know that's going to get a lot of you riled up, but I think it's a really relevant question for the time, and I'll tell you why in this episode. A lot of people really like muscle cars, and they have for generations. But in spite of that, it's a question that's been bothering me for a couple of years now, mainly provoked by the existence of the 2018 Dodge Demon. Why the Demon? Well, the Demon was marketed as a true factory engineered and warranted drag strip king that anyone with a fairly sizable chunk of cash after dealer gouging could buy and drive off a showroom floor. No need to spend months or years laboring in your garage, cobbling together specialty parts, ordering, machining, testing, tuning, breaking things, and then starting all over again and repeating that process. No, in theory, you could just walk into a dealership and you could leave with a car that would beat anything offered on the market, no matter whether it was an exotic race car kind of wannabe or what have you. It was supposed to be the fastest production car in history, right? That was 2018. But was that ever true, or was it just mainly hype? That's what I want to find out today. There's also going to be a second part to this, which is I started writing this probably almost a year ago, and I kind of shelved it for whatever reason. But I want to do a second part which takes into account the new Tesla Model S Plaid and also the Rimac Nevera, which is the Croatian hypercar. So a little background on the muscle car. The muscle car is basically any domestic two-door car with a rear-wheel drive and powerful V8 motor at the front. Its mission in life is to be affordable and to go really fast in a straight line, notably faster than a family car, daily driver, or even a sports car. Well, we're talking about 1960s sports cars like little Austin Healey's and MGs and even the old Porsches. The legend of the muscle car era was born in the 1960s with cars like the Pontiac GTO, Chevelle SS, Camaro Z28, Plymouth Hemi Barracuda, Shelby Mustang GT350, Plymouth Roadrunner Superbird, and many more. The race for more and more horsepower culminated in engines like the 7-liter Hemi making 425 horsepower and the Chevelle's 454 cubic inch 450 horsepower. But in 1970, Richard Nixon signed into existence the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and all of a sudden, manufacturers needed to meet emission standards.
No! No! Well, I'm not a crook.
Then the 1973 oil crisis hit North America, and the price of gas went up. That caused consumers to turn away from these big, heavy, gas-guzzling road rockets and towards smaller, more efficient cars. So that's where things sat for a while. But since around the 1990s, there's been a steady market for more and more powerful, high-performance cars. There's been a lot of really great cars since the 1990s of all kinds. 4, 6, 8, 10, and even 12-cylinder cars. Well, even 16 cylinders if you count the Bugatti Veyron and Chiron, which came out with almost 1,000 horsepower and a top speed of 250 miles an hour, which is quite incredible. Throughout all those years, production of the Chevy Corvette, Ford Mustang, and the Chevy Camaro continued, with steady improvements. The Corvette became truly a world-class sports car, and as of 2020, became a mid-engine supercar that can compete with the world's best. Today, both Ford Mustang and Chevy Camaro can be spec'd as very capable track cars, but they're not designed for the drag strip. It should be noted that horsepower levels for all these models are higher than ever before. The base Corvette is almost 500 horsepower, And the supercharged versions of the Mustang and Camaro are pushing out mind-boggling like 760 and 650 horsepower respectively. In terms of performance, here's where things get a little bit complicated. Dodge claimed that the new production car acceleration time was in the low 2s from 0 to 60 and a 9.65 second quarter mile. For this reason, a lot of people think that every Demon can do this, maybe even on the street, with pump gas and street tires. Reality is quite different, however, and for that reason, the Demon really can't make those claims off the drag strip. Conditions have to be perfect for it to get to that 9.65 second time.
No, it's not doing anything. Oh, bollocks. Spinning. What the? It's still spinning. So quick. Can we do it again?
When somebody says to you that a Demon is really cheap to buy, the answer is that mostly it wasn't cheap at all. The MSRP was $86,000, and that's a pretty expensive car to begin with, but there was a bunch of price gouging by a lot of dealers and other people, and some were selling them for $190,000 US dollars. In fact, it's been the most expensive new muscle car probably produced in America, or among the most expensive muscle cars ever produced. And that's even with the discontinued Viper ACR. Speaking of the Viper, it doesn't really belong in the muscle car category, but it's worth noting that because it was such a great supercar for Dodge, both on the road and in racing series, it had a monster V10 engine and it's certainly one of the most important performance cars produced in the last 30 years. So shout out to the Dodge Viper. Getting back to the Demon and Hellcats, once the Demon was discontinued, the Hellcat Red Eye took its place with slightly less power. It continues to the present. Now, you might think that the Red Eye would be easily able to outpace almost every other production car, but the truth is it's just not as fast as you think. Whether it's the excessive weight, the limited traction of the rear-wheel drive front engine layout, or the transmission, or some other things, car and driver got numbers of 3.6 seconds from 0 to 60, and an 11.8 second quarter mile with the wide body version. The wide body should have better handling on the road, so with that much power, it'd probably be the way to go. The problem with that performance at high 11s to the quarter mile is that it's not going to beat a lot of the faster cars on the road today. It can't really compete with the all-wheel drive supercars like the Huracan, Lamborghini, or even mid-engined rear-wheel drive versions in a straight line like the McLarens, for example. And I mean, obviously they'd leave it for dead on a racetrack, on a road course, because we're not just talking about straight lines here. If you take a look at the McLaren 765 LT, for example, I mean, that's a hell of a fast car in a straight line. But on a track, it's also a hell of a fast car. And something like the Hellcat Red Eye just cannot compete with a car like that on a track, on a road course. If you look at a few of the specs from other cars like the Porsche 911 Turbo, the AMG GTR, even Nissan GTR, a lot of quarter mile times in those cars are in the mid 10s to 11s consistently. And right now, I believe now we're in 2022, January of 2022, performance model of the Tesla Model 3 is rated at, I think it's 11.6 or 11.7 seconds for the quarter mile, and a 0 to 60 in the low 3s. So that's a very, very quick car. That's a dual motor all-wheel drive. Sometime later, I'll look at the impact of the new Tesla Model S Plaid against other muscle cars. But I think what you're going to find is that whatever trend that I've described here, where every effort to make a internal combustion engine car, rear-wheel drive front engine, go really, really, really fast and warranty it, like make it as a production car, that effort is waning right now because it's so easy to make electric cars fast, and there are mid-engine cars out there that have better performance times because they have better traction. So there's kind of two converging reasons why the traditional muscle car format is on its last legs, I think. Now recently, Dodge has confirmed that they're discontinuing the Hellcat after, I believe it's this year, and they're not going to make another one until, or another similar version until a couple of years from now, when they're going to introduce what they say now is going to be an all-electric, so an EV muscle car. That, I think, is going to make a huge statement to the drag racers, and I would be betting that that is going to be also a dual motor at the very least, and all-wheel drive, because it just makes sense. If you want to get a bunch of power down on the street or on the track, all-wheel drive is a much better way to go for that. When you get up to the levels of horsepower where you're looking at 800 to 1100 horsepower, and there are more and more cars in that category, it's almost a given that they're going to be all-wheel drive or mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little introduction into the subject, whether or not the muscle car is dead, and you can leave me your comments below to tell me what you think about the future for the muscle car is. Certainly the future for the internal combustion muscle car versus all the other products that are out on the market today, and especially keeping in mind the price points of these cars. Once they become really expensive, you're kind of competing with every other high-performance car, so there's no sort of huge price advantage to going with the muscle car. Certainly not the limited production muscle cars. So leave me your comments below. Please like and subscribe this video, and as always, thank you very, very much for watching. See you next time.